Okay, Atish, we are going live now. Okay, Atish, we are going live now. Hey everyone, good evening. How are you all? Can you please introduce yourselves in the comment box? Anyone out there? Okay, I think we will start now. Hopefully more people will join as we go along. So thank you everyone who has turned in till now. As you all know, most of you might know that we started Laravel Nagpur Meetup way back in February of 2019. And we recently completed 3 full years of non-stop monthly meetups. So we are now entering in the 4th year with this meetup. And today we have Atish Goswami with us as the speaker. So let me first introduce Atish. Atish is a technical architect with Dentsu World Service for the Adobe Commerce practice. He is a certified Adobe Commerce architect and specializes in creating headless e-commerce applications and omnichannel implementations. He has more than 8 years of experience with PHP application development, and he regularly uses frameworks like Laravel, Kick PHP, and then e-commerce platforms like Magento, Zencut, etc. So today he'll be speaking on how to get up and running with PHP8. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Atish. Hey Atish, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All good, all good. It's all yours. Please start. Thank you.
Okay, let me just start sharing my screen. Let me know once it's visible. Okay, I think my screen is visible now. Let's get started. So at any point, if my screen lags or you have any audio issues, just speak up and I'll try to do my best to mitigate the issue. Okay, so today's presentation is all about getting up and running with PHP8. So a little bit about me, as Nabasar already introduced me, technical architect at Dentsu World Services, basically for the Adobe Commerce practice. I have almost 10 years of experience in IT, work on like various PHP frameworks like Laravel, PHP, and Magento for the last 7 years. And I'm also an organizer in the Magento Meetup Nagpur. So like we have Laravel Meetup Nagpur, same way we have Magento Meetup Nagpur as well. If you are interested in learning Magento, you can join this group as well. So what's the agenda of today? So the agenda of this meetup is, or this presentation is to get you introduced to the latest features in PHP 8.0 and 8.1. So you might be thinking, why do I need to learn about PHP 8 right now? I'm pretty happy with PHP 7. I'll upgrade to PHP 8 whenever I can. But there is a caveat. So PHP 7 is reaching its end of life. So as you can see in this presentation, PHP 7.4 has already reached its security fixes only period, which will last till November 2021, 2022. So November 2022, 28th, which is in 7 months. The security fixes support will also be removed and it will reach the end of life quite soon. So right now we only have 2 versions of PHP which are getting actively maintained, which is 8.0 and 8.1. So as you can see, it's pretty now high time that we migrate to PHP 8. So what's there in PHP 8? What is new in PHP 8? So let's start one by one. So let's talk about match expressions. So this time we did a format a little bit different.
Atish,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I forgot to mention one thing. So everyone who is there in the attendees, please note that we'll be having a PHP Storm license giveaway towards the end of the talk. So please stay till the end of the talk. Thank you.
Okay, so back to our presentation. So this time we did the presentation a little bit differently. So instead of showing you a bunch of slides, we have prepared a lot of examples for each of these features. So for example, match expression. So let's see in demo or a real life example of how match expressions work and how is it different. So I'm switching my screen to my code editor. Hope everybody can see my code editor now. So here you can see I have an example.php, which consists of a very basic example of a switch case. So we have a variable called response code, which is 200, equivalent to 200. And then we have various cases of 200, 300, and we use a variable called from switch and set some kind of value depending on whichever case is satisfied. And finally, at the bottom of the line, you will see that we have an echo statement of switch case, switch, and then whatever value is getting set in here. So if I save this and then move on to my command line and then run it, you will see that switch is throwing OK. So how does that work? We have 200, 200, and 300 cases are setting as OK. If I have 400, it will go no, not found. If I have 500, server error. And if it doesn't match anything, it will go to unknown status code, right? So this is how a normal switch case work. We are quite familiar with this. So let's see what the match expression is all about. So let me just copy a little bit of a snippet and paste it right at the bottom. So here it is this switch case written in a match expression. So how does this look? So we have a from match variable, and then we have an assignment operator. We have a match function. In that we have the parameter as the response code, which is set right here. So here in switch, we pass in the response code variable. Here in match, we pass in the response code variable. Now we have cases. So here you will see that if like 2 or 3 cases are the same, we have the cases one after the other, and then we have the condition that needs to be executed and then a break statement. Here you will see that the cases are matched if they are the same with an equivalent output. Then it is something like this, wherein you have the case 200, 300, and then we have a arrow and then pointing to OK. Then 400 pointing to not found, 500 pointing to server error, and then we have a default keyword as well, which points to unknown status code. Okay. So this is how we write the switch case, and this is how we write the match expression. So let's try to figure out how similar they are. So now if I add another line, which is now throwing an echo statement towards the match, and then the variable which is from match, and then a PHP end of line. So now if I run this case or this script, you will see that switch case is throwing OK, match is also throwing OK. So if I go up here, you will see 200. Okay. So now let's change it up to a string. So if I do something like this, 200, save it, and then try to run one more time. Here you will see again the switch case is giving me OK, but the match case is giving me unknown status code. So this is the main difference between a match and a switch case. Match is more type check strict, wherein like if you have something like an integer assigned to it, it will only check for integers. So there is a type check in front of it. But in switch cases, it's very loosely typed. So even if it is a string, but it matches the value, you'll still get the condition executed. So this is the first difference. What is the second difference that we can see? So let's change this to 999. Okay, save that and try to run it one more time. Now you will see that the switch case throws an saying that, okay, unknown status code, match also does the same. So this is pretty similar. So let's now just comment this out and do the same for match as well. Save it and run it one more time. Now you will see we have a blank statement here, which means that we didn't get an output because none of it is set, and the from variable doesn't have a value. So we don't get anything. But on the second part, you will see that there is an uncaught, unhandled match error, unhandled match case 999 in the line number 21. So here you can see if it doesn't find a default statement in match, it will actually throw an exception. So this is kind of handled quite well according to exception handling, wherein if you don't have a default statement here, nothing seems to happen. And if there is like an edge case which is not handled by a default statement, the code will never know and the code kind of keeps on executing. But here an exception is thrown and actually has to be handled as well. So this is the main difference. So this is all about match expressions as well as switch case. So I hope you understood what are the similarities of a match expression as well as switch case. So if you have any questions, just put it down in the chats and we will take the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, let's go back to our presentation once more. So we talked about matched expressions last time. Now let's talk about named arguments. So what is named arguments? So let me just remove this part and let's start fresh. So let's take a very basic example of something like this. So we have a core function or core PHP function called setCookie. And here, as you can see, if I can click on it, it will give us a definition saying that, okay, so we have a name, a value, an option, path, domain, secure, HTTP only. So there are multiple parameters or arguments that are available for this function. And here even if we are going to pass our custom values, we actually have to map it one by one and try to pass a default value for all those arguments which we are not actually going to pass in. So how does PHP8 solve this? PHP8 solve this by named argument. So for example, let's say that I want to only pass in the name of the cookie, and then finally I also want to pass in that if it is secure or not. By default it's false, I want to mark it as true. So this is how you write it in PHP8. So in PHP8, this is how you write it. So I have setCookie function once again, and then we have the first argument, which is not a named argument per se, but a argument value, which is cookie name. So that is considered as the first argument right here. And then if you see, this is a little bit odd right here. So we have the parameter name separated by a colon and then the value. So what it does is tries to find the name that we have specified here, which is secure. So it will try to find the name secure parameter, which is right here, and then assign the value true to it. So this is how it works. So let's take another example. Let's try to run it practically. So I will try to write a small function. So here I have a very small function called sample function, which has 3 arguments, string. All of these are string arguments because I namespaced it. Sorry, not namespaced, typecasted it. And then we have $A, $B, and $C. And here the function does nothing, just return it as an array. Okay. So now, if I run something like this, let's see. There we go. Something like this. So wherein I have a printer associated with our function, which is sample function, and then we have C colon, and then this is A, okay, and then this is B, and then this is C, okay. So let's try to fix this once and then try to jumble it out and see what happens, okay. So I try something like this. So we have parameter A or named argument A and mapped to this value, named argument B, which is this one, mapped to this value, and named argument C mapped to this value, okay. And I save this and try to run it. And I have 3 values, which is this is A, this is B, and this is C, okay. Now I can change it. So I can say this is C and this is A. Save it. Now this was an order. Let's try to see what happens now. So as you can see, the first argument, which is A, has been assigned the value. This is C, which goes on the top right here. And we get an output. This is C. Then we have B, which has not been changed. So it remains in the middle. But again, then we have C, which is assigned the value, this is A, and then it appears at the top. So here, as you can see, you can like run around changing the order of the parameters, but you have to mention the parameter name so that the proper values get assigned. Okay. Next up, let's try something a little bit different. So here again, we just remove the bottom line, have the same function, do the same return, and let's try a little bit differently. So now I have a variable called argument, which has an array. Array key is the variable name or the parameter name, and array value is, of course, the value that is assigned to it. So we can now do an array spread, something like this, and save it and run it once again. And you will see that 0th is again, this is argument A, this is argument B, and this is argument C. We can actually move it around as well. So I can put C on the top, A at the middle, and B at the bottom. Save it, run it once again, and you will get the same output wherein like we have A, B, and C in the same order. Why? Even if we change the order in which the values are assigned in the array, but we still have the variable or the parameter name associated with the value. So we can also do comment out a variable name. So if I can do something like this, so if I pass only C and A, then I'll start getting something like an error saying that the second argument B is not being passed. So I can assign something as a default value right here. And of course, the B is not passed. Okay, so here we actually have to mandatorily pass all the variables instead of like passing one of them. Okay, and then finally you can also have an error while adding some new values which are not present. So if I do something like this and remove this once more and add a new line, let's say we pass in argument D that does not exist. Save it and try to run it, we'll get a similar error saying that we have a named parameter D in this value and which does not actually exist, or unknown name parameter. So this is how the name parameters work. So the basic takeaway is that you now have a ability to assign parameter values even if you are not in assigning them in the correct order, and you don't have to assign all the parameters if they have like default values associated. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them down in the comments and we'll try to answer them at the end of the presentation. So now we looked into named argument. Let's look into union types. So now what are union types? So let's take a basic example once again. So let's clear this out. Stop this. Okay. So now let's take a PHP function. Again, our very own sample function. We have a type printing put here saying that it's a string, and then we have a parameter called input, and then we just do a printer of the input, nothing fancy. Now, what do we do next? We call the function and then we echo it out. So here we do something like this. Save. So now what are we doing? We are passing in hello, which is a string, which is again the parameter for input variable, and then we are printing it out as printer. So now let's run it and we get hello. Nothing fancy here. Now, if I pass in something like this, let's say 1, save it again, try one more time, you're getting 1. But you might think, why is this happening? It shouldn't be happening because this is a string and this is 1. So why doesn't it throw an error? So because we actually have to declare strict types. So if we declare that right here, save it. And now if I run, it will say that it must be a string and nothing else, right? So in PHP 7 or till PHP 7, we could only do a type check for a single data type. It cannot be a multiple data type. But now using union types, we actually have the ability to do something like this. Okay. So how does this work? So here, as you can see, I am giving the function the ability to take a parameter as a string or as an array. So now if I do hello and save, once again, run the function, you'll get the output as hello. Or if I want, I can do something like this. Oopsie. Save. Now we have an array which has a array value of hello, and the function still accepts it. Okay. So this is a or check. Basically, it should be either be a string or an array. Okay. So you can add multiple checks here as well. So you can have it like, okay, it can be an int as well, or it can be a particular class as well. Okay. So for int checks, if I can do something like this, save it, and then again run it, then int is also acceptable. So now the function is accepting string, array, and int. So now we can also do some object checks as well, or class checks as well. So here I added a class called demo class. It's a simple class. And here I can say that I am also accepting demo class. Save it. Here I can do an instance of demo class. Save it. Run it. It still accepts it. Okay, great. So what else can we do? We can also accept null as well. So if it is null, right now, if I do something like this, it will throw an error saying that it doesn't match the type, one of these. Okay. So for that, you can just do a null check and do this, save. And now, as you can see, the printer is blank because we passed in a null, but it also accepts null as well. Okay. So these are basically the things that we have for our, what you can say, union type. This is also passed on to return types as well. So I can say it returns a string or a boolean. So now if I do, instead of this, I do return input. And here I just pass in, let's say, hello again. Right? Save it. I don't think it'll print out, so I just do an echo. And we got a hello, right? And it also accepts boolean. So if I can do something like this, false, again, same, still acceptable. Okay. So union type again, just to summarize, we have the ability to pass in multiple data type checks for an argument, also as a return type as well. Okay. Let's go back. So we looked into union types. So what's next? Let's look into promoted properties. So what are promoted properties? So let's try again with a very simple example. Let's save this out. Let's try with a very simple example of a class. Okay. So here I have a class called demo. Okay. We have a public property, which is named as first, and then we have a private property, which is again named as second. Here, these are both type hinted as strings, so only strings are acceptable. We have a constructor. Here we have again accepting only string as parameters, and we also have default values, which is value 1 and value 2. And then we assign them to these properties in the constructor itself. Okay. So now, if I do something like this, so we have an echo. Here I'm trying to initialize demo class and then trying to print out the public property first and then do an end of line. So let's see what happens. We can clear this out, run, and we have value 1. So value 1 again is the default one. So here I can do something like this, wherein I can also use named arguments, wherein I can assign B and then value, let's say third or something. Save it. Still value 1. I can move this to public, save it, and then let's say I assign second, save, run it. We have value third because we are passing a argument value in the constructor itself. It overrides the default value and gets assigned to this property, and then we print it out. So this is a PHP 7 or PHP 7x or PHP 5x way of doing things. So how does this change using promoted property in PHP 8? So this same class, this can be rewritten using promoted property using something like this. So if I can change this, something like this. So now, as you can see, so if I can do it side by side, maybe that would be helpful. So I can do, let's say new. Okay. So now here, as you can see, we don't declare the properties individually anymore. We just declare the property inside the constructor argument itself. We also declare the scope again in the argument itself. We have public string, which is the data type, and then the argument name, private string second, and then again the name. And here inside the constructor, we are literally doing nothing. So the assignment also happens automatically. Okay. So again, the differences is that we don't declare the properties individually or like separately. We declare them inside the constructor. First argument or the first part would be the scope. The second part would be the data type, and then the third part would be the variable name. And then, of course, if you have a default value associated with it, you can. Or if it is not, then you can just remove it as well. Same. Okay. So I can remove this class now. And let's play around with this class now. Okay. Okay, great. So now, if I want, I can do something like this. Second. Okay. Yeah, just got a ping. Okay, so now here I can do something like this. So I can have second or like first as well, doesn't matter. First is public, so we are going to print that out. Remove this. So now what I'm trying to do is assign a value, which is value third or value, let's say new. This should override the default value of value one because it is getting assigned to first or the first parameter. And then we are trying to echo out the first parameter or the property. And here we have value new. So this is how it looks. So basically the whole class, which looks a little bit bigger due to all the properties that we had to assign, and then the constructor where we have to assign all of them to the particular arguments that has been passed in from the constructor. We can do it just like this. So this is basically a PHP class shorthand to do all of it in very few lines of code. I hope you got the point of why promoted properties were introduced in PHP8. Okay, so we got on promoted property. Next, we have nullsafe operator. So nullsafe operator has been requested several times in PHP, and finally we got it in PHP8. So you might be thinking, what is a nullsafe operator now? So let's take an example once again. So we'll start with the PHP open tag, and then we'll have a JSON value, a little bit of JSON. So here, let's talk about what the JSON value consists of. We have a JSON value of code 200, and then the status, message, and then a product key, and then some information about the product. Okay, so this is the JSON value. Next, we can JSON decode it into an object and put it inside a response variable, and then let's play around with it or try to access certain values from it. So now if I do something like this, wherein we have a response, and then we have a product, which is this, and then we have category names, which is this, category names, which is this, and then we have clothing associated with it. So if I save that and then run the code, you will see that clothing is getting printed up. Great, everything looks nice. Now what can be done? So if I do something like this, so let's say at certain point we have something like this, wherein we don't have a property product, which comes in the response. Okay. So now if I do something like this, you will see that attempt to read a property on null is throwing me an error. So can we do? So here in nullsafe operator, or like the null operator, the null safe operator, we have a question mark. So what does it say? It says that if this is a object and we have a value of or a property associated with category underscore names, then only try to access it, or else don't do it. So now if I run it one more time, there is no error, but we don't get any values either. Okay. So this kind of helps with adding. So normally what we do in PHP before PHP8 is that we have a bunch of if checks and then empty checks and so on and so forth to figure out if we have access to that property or not, if it is coming or not. This kind of gives you a very easy way of accessing or like giving a check just using one question mark. So if I can revert it back, so you can have it something like this. So now if I run it one more time, we have clothing because we have the value. Okay. And at any point, if we decide that, oh, okay, so this doesn't exist anymore, and we have a null associated with it, and then try to run it again, we don't get a value, but we don't also get an error. So this actually helps with all those if checks that we normally have to put in complex property checks. Of course, Laravel has a lot of, like, what you can say, helper method that helps with this, but this is now built in into PHP. Okay, so we looked into null safe operator. Let's move on to exceptions. So there had been a few changes that are done, how the exceptions are handled in PHP, and we are going to see how it acts a little bit differently in PHP8. Okay, so let's take a very basic example. We put it here. So here I have a try catch block, and we have inside the try block, we are trying to throw a new exception with a message of no. And then in the exception, we have echo. We have the exception, what you can say, object. And then we have access to the get message, which is basically this parameter right here. Okay. If I save this and run it, you'll see that we have the output no, right? So this is basically how we normally do try catch handling or exception handling in PHP before PHP 7, right? So what's different in PHP 8? Okay, so you can do something like this as well. So this is also sometimes happens that you're just throwing an exception and we are just not showing any kind of or showing any kind of messages, and we directly echo out or handle the message ourselves and don't actually rely on whatever message is coming from the exception. So if I run this, this also works. But in PHP 7, what used to happen is that you have to pass in this parameter always, right? If you don't pass it, it will throw in an error. But in PHP 8, it is not necessary. If you're not using it, you can just remove it as well. So now I can run one more time, and then we have hello, and we don't have to pass in the exception argument, or what you can say, the argument, right? So this is the basic difference that has been made in PHP 8, which was not possible in PHP 7. Also, another thing is that it's no longer a statement, it's an expression now. So you can do something like this, wherein you can put it inside a throw new exception, right? You can put it inside a class call, function callback, and then you can do a bunch of checks or something like this here. And if all those checks are not satisfied, then only you can throw an exception. And if not, nothing will happen. So if I can comment this out, run it, there is no output. But if I uncomment it, save it, now you should see hello. So this is also a new possibility in PHP 8. So what are the differences? One, the parameter associated with the catch block, wherein you have to pass in some E parameter, or let's say exception parameter. It's no longer necessary. And second is that it's no longer a statement, it's an expression. So it can be put inside a callback, and then that callback can be called whenever you need to throw in an exception. Okay, great. Next, we have object names. So what are object names? So let's try one really quickly. So let's remove this and put in something like this. So you have a new PHP start tag, and then we have a namespace of Acme, and then we have a class demo, right? And then we can initialize the demo class right here, okay? And then we can put an end of line right here. So what we are trying to do is trying to get the class name of the property or variable A. Okay, so let's see what we get, and we run it. We get a namespace associated with the class. Okay, great. In PHP, what you can say 8 or above, we can now do something like this as well, wherein you can just add a colon class, and then you can also get the same value. Of course, it was possible before in what you can say PHP 7, but at that point you cannot do it on properties. You actually had to do something like this, wherein like you have Acme and then demo class, and then you have the class, right? So you had to do something like this. So this is no longer needed. Now you can directly access it from the variable where the object has been initialized. So this and this was previous to PHP8, and this is how PHP8 also allows you to do. So you have the variable which has the object, and then you can do a colon class, and you also have the class name accessible. Okay, great. Did I miss anything? Nope. Okay, great. Next, we have stringable interface. So what is a stringable interface? So let's take a very quick example. So I put this out, take a new block. There we go. So here we have a function called sum method, and then we have a data type string associated with the parameter input. And here I'm trying to typecast it into a string and then doing an input and then a PHP end of line. Very basic stuff. And if I do a call to like the method something, save it and then run it, this is high. So we are passing the high parameter, and this parameter is getting put it in front of the echo statement, and then we typecast it as string. It is already a string, doesn't change anything, and we get a high as an output. So let's change. Let's do something a little bit more fancy. Okay. So now, if I do something like this, okay. So now. Yeah. Okay. So we now have a new class demo, which is right here. And then we are trying to pass it inside the input parameter. So if I do an echo, it will say that it must be a string given a demo. Okay. So now I can do something like this. Oops. One more time. So we can use the magic function _ toString. What happens is that every time somebody tries to stringify or try and echo in front of the class, toString actually gets invoked, and whatever logic you have put in front of it, it will start executing that. So I can save that and then try to run it one more time. And now it gets typecasted into a string and properly echoed out. So which is good. Now, if I do a strict check right here, and run it once more time, it will say that your must be a string, but you're trying to push in a demo object, so which is not possible. So now I need a way to figure out how it can be added. So we can do a union type, and then we can do a stringable. So stringable interface basically means that any object that has an _ toString method associated with it can be passed into this parameter. So basically, it basically becomes string safe, and any string operations that are trying to be getting executed, like typecasting into a string and so on, can be done safely. So now if I run it, you get string from demo class, which is executing right from here. So now what we are accepting is strings or anything that can be converted into a string, or any object that can be converted into a string. So you don't have to like implement the stringable interface here. Every time you declare a function or the magic method toString, it automatically implements the stringable interface automatically. So you don't have to do it manually. I hope you got how it works. And if you have any questions, of course, please write it in the comments and we will take a look at the end of this presentation. Next up, we have 3 new string methods, which are most awaited. When I will show you, you might think that, oh, I also need this function, because we all have used it somewhere or anywhere. So let's try to see one. We have a variable called str, which is saying, how are you? Okay. And now I want to check if there is R, or the word R is present in the sentence. So how do we do it in PHP 7, or like lower than PHP 8? This is how we do it. We have an str pause, we pass in the string, we look in for the needle ARE, and it should not be equal to false, and then we echo true, save it, run it, and we get and return as true. I'm just checking if my screen share is still on. Yep, it's on. It's on. Good. So we get it true. So this is how we used to do in PHP functions which are lower than PHP 8. So PHP 8, what does it do? It actually gives you a function. So it gives you a function which is called str_contains. So wherein you put in the string, which is again in the str, and then whatever you are searching for. I'm searching for R, right? We run it, and it's again true. So you don't have to do the str post check, which is kind of a hack we used to do. Now we have a dedicated function which actually helps you find any kind of words inside a sentence. So this is how it used to happen before PHP 8, and this is how it works in PHP 8. So we got a much more readable function, which is str_contain, which by reading the function, you know what it does. It actually checks a string inside a haystack, right? Okay, what's next? The next one is something like this. So we also used to find words inside sentences. We also did if something starts with a certain word or not. So we are trying to check if how is the first word in this sentence. So we do something like this. Str, wherein we put in the string name, we put an offset which starts from 0. We find the length and then try to find the whatever we are trying to find. So it starts from 0 and then whatever the length, and tries to trace out all the characters in between and tries to match if we are doing the find, which is how. And then if it matches, we have true. So, and of course we get true. But now in PHP 8, we do something like this. So no longer we need to do a mix of like 2 functions to get our output. We can just do str starts with, we put in the string, whatever the string is, and whatever word we want to find, if it starts with it or not. So if I do once again, it again returns true. Next, again, we have starts with, again, we also have ends with. So here is how the ends with looks like. Pretty much before PHP 8, we used to do something like sub-str, we have the string. We used to do a minus from the find, so it actually runs the character from behind and then tries to figure out if like we have the words from the back, right? In PHP 8, we have str ends with, we have the string, we have like whatever we want to find, and then we can do the pretty much the same thing. So again, both of them returns true. So again, this is the way of doing it before PHP 8, and after PHP 8, we have something like this. Hope you enjoyed looking at these functions. These are something newly introduced in PHP and much awaited as well. Next up, we will explore weak maps. So weak maps is a little bit of a complex, what you can say, feature, which normally as a developer you might not be using that much, but if you are, let's say, a framework developer or a package developer, you might use it or like create certain features. So before we understand what are weak maps, let's try to understand how memory management works in PHP. So we have a class called demo, we have a constructor, we also have a destructor or a destructor. So these are like magic methods. We have the constructor wherein we have like the string, this is a class init, and then the PHP end of line, and this is this class destroyed, and then again PHP end of line. Okay, great. So now I can do something like this. Let me just remove this. Good. So now we have this class. Now what we are trying to do is trying a variable, which is obj1, and trying to initialize our demo class, which is this one, right? We have a statement saying that creating a demo object, and then we have also a statement on an echo statement saying that removing the demo object. So we unset that object. Okay. So now if I run it, you will see that we have a statement which is creating an object, which is right here, creating demo object. Okay. Then we have the class, this is a class init, right? So what happens is that whenever we initialize this class, the constructor is executed and we get this output, which is right here. Okay. Next, whenever we unset it, which is object one, we get removing the object. Okay. So which is right here. And which executes the destructor, which is right here. The class is destroyed. So here we say that the class is destroyed right here. Okay. Now let's add a little bit of a complexity now. So if I do something like this, object2, obj2, which is another proper variable, and then we are assigning this variable to object2. Save it and then run it. You will see that we are creating an object. We are running the init, then we are removing the object, and then we have the class destroyed, right? But if I do something like this, save it, try one more time. Now you will see that we have creating the class object, which starts from this line, right? Then we have this class is init, which means that we initialize the object at obj1, right? New demo, and this statement is executed using the constructor, right? Then I say that we are removing the object, right? Right here, I'm saying that I'm removing the object, and then after that, I do an unset of obj1. But what happens is that it tries to figure out if like this object is used anywhere else, and it does, right? So now you will see that this unset doesn't take any effect. I see a demo, which is this get class. So if I just add a little bit of a statement here, clear this out one more time. We have class name demo, and then at the end there, when there is nothing and the whole what you can say, the thread is over, then the garbage collector kicks in, and then it tries to remove the class, which is the class has been destroyed. So even if I have an unset but the object is getting used anywhere else, it will still not remove it. So here comes weak maps. So how does that work? So let's try to change this a little bit and try to see how it takes effect. So how do we use weak map? So we again have the same class. We initialize a weak map, something like this. So we have a variable called weak map. It can be anything, of course, and we initialize new weak map object. Okay, so this is an inbuilt object or like an inbuilt class in PHP8 right now, which gives you access to the object of weak map. So how does that work? So this is something how it looks like. So now we are creating the demo object, right? Our previous example, we have a variable called obj1 equal to new demo. Okay. And then this object is used as the key. And then of course you can assign values to it. So basically for like complex operational class wherein like the class constructor is doing some operations which you would like to cache out, you can actually store it against the object, and then you have a value associated with it. Okay. So now if I want, I can put it something like this. So weak map again will give me a count of how many are there. And then I can do something like this, which is removing the object one, right? And then weak map. Okay. So we try to dump it out. So let's try to see and analyze how the output looks like. So here I have the first statement saying that creating a demo object. So creating a demo object. Next, we have the class is init, right? So here we initialize the demo class, which in turn kicks in the constructor, and we get the output. This is a class init. And once this is done, we actually assign it to the weak map key and then assign some value associated with it. We want to, we also echoed out the count. So we have one count in it because in the weak map, we just assigned one single object, right? And then we again unset the object, which is this one. So now what you will see is that here, once you unset this object, the key also gets unset automatically. And then finally, if I do a var dump, you will see that the weak map has 0 keys right here. So this actually gives you a memory safe way of handling multiple objects if you are caching them, initializing them. Memory or weak map actually helps you store them, and whenever you want to clean them, you don't have to clean them individually. You just have to do an unset, and automatically the weak map key will also be disassociated and cleaned out of memory. Of course, this is a little bit of complex example. You might not do use it day to day, but this is something that you can explore when and if needed in your application, or whenever you're doing a package development where this kind of caching or object caching is needed. Okay. Next up, we have trailing commas in function definitions. Okay. So what are this? This is a very basic example. I can give it. So before PHP8, what we used to have an error for is something like this. If we had a trailing comma at the last of a function, we used to get a syntax error saying that this is not allowed. So normally in PHP8, in PHP7 or lower than PHP8, you will see certain kinds of conventions that have been followed. So I have seen conventions something like this, wherein you put the comma in front of the parameter, so that at the end, if somebody is adding a new parameter, they start with the comma and then they can put in their parameter name or something like this. Okay. But in PHP8, this is no longer needed. So you can have like trailing commas and it will not throw an error. So it's pretty much the same like we have in arrays as well. So in array also, we can have a trailing comma at the end of the array and still it will not throw an error. Same is now happening for methods as well. Great. Next up, now we just covered all the functions that were, or like the new features that were available in PHP 8. Now we are moving on to PHP 8.1. So PHP 8.1 introduced a new fancy feature called read-only properties. So we in PHP 8, we saw what are promoted properties. Now let's see what are read-only properties as well. Okay, so now let's declare a class. So we have a demo class right here, and we have promoted properties called public string first and then public string second. Okay, and I can do something like this. Something like this. So here, as you can see, I have a demo class which is initialized inside the variable obj, and we have the first parameter, which is this one, and we assigned a value of data1, and then second parameter we have the assignment of data2. Then I can echo out first, which is again the first, which should be data1, and then again I did something which is a little bit unconventional, wherein like as it is a public property, I can use the object to assign the property a new value, which I did, which is data new, and then again echoed out the property first. So how does the output looks like? You might have already guessed it. So we have first data1, which was the initial data1 value that was passed in through the constructor and assigned to first property. And then we have a change in the value called data new, and then again assigned to when we again try to echo out the value of property first, it will give us data new. Okay, so this is pretty much straightforward. So how does this change? So now we can actually have something like this, read only. So we can have a string as read only, which means that you can only assign value using the constructor, but not using like properties. So sometimes what happens that you want to have the property public, but you don't want it mutable or changed by somebody else externally using objects. So this is something which is comes in handy. So once I do read only, and then we do something like this. So you got an error saying that cannot modify read-only property first. Okay. So initially, before like PHP8, what we used to do if we don't want this mutable, we used to make it private, and then we actually had to use a public getter function wherein we used it to fetch the value, right? But now it's no longer needed. You can just have a public property, but you can assign read only associated with it. And now nobody can mutate it using an object. So this is something new that has been added by PHP8. Hope you understood what read only properties are. Then next up, enums. So enums, I think you might already know if you already have used databases. You might have come across enum data type, wherein you have predefined values associated, so that like whenever the column actually receives a value, it should be associated with any of those predefined values. Initially in PHP8, there was nothing called enum type, but now it has been introduced. So let's see how the enum types looks like. Okay. So we start with PHP open tag, right? So how do we declare an enum? We use the keyword enum, okay? And here, let's say I use something called status, okay? So now I want to declare certain statuses, okay? So let's say that I'm building an e-commerce application and we need certain statuses, okay? So I got pending status, and then we have, let's say, processing status as well. And then finally, we also have complete status as well, right? Okay. So we have these, right? And we can have something like this as well. So now we assign it to a class. So in the class, uh, okay. So inside a class, we have order, okay, and we have the we take two parameters from the constructor. First is a public property wherein you can assign the increment ID or the order ID, and then the second property you can actually assign the status. But here I have the type check of the enum type status. Okay. So what this does is something will check just now. So now save. Okay, I think it will throw me an error. But let's try it out. So now we have order property, order variable, which has the object of order class. And here we are assigning demo001 as the increment ID, and then the status is complete. So where does this come from? This comes from right here. Okay. I might have an example class which also has the same name, so just changing that. Okay, now it looks good. So we have order, and we are passing the first parameter as demo001, which is the increment ID. And then we have order status complete, okay, which is this status. And then I can use status pointing to name. So this will print out the name of the case that we are having. So now if I do something like this, you will see it says complete. Okay. So now if I try to pass in any other value, let's say blocked or something like that, try to save that, you will see that it must be a type of order status and it will not try to take any other statuses. So I can do complete. Okay. So now what else enum can do? Enum can also have values associated with it. So you can actually associate values to it as well. So if I say pending, let's say something like this, sorry. And then processing, I can have a value associated with this as well. And of course, complete, we have a value associated with this as well. So now, whenever we have values associated with it, we actually have to have a return type associated with the enum as well. So here I can have a state which is like pending, which I'm using internally, and then you can have a publicly available status. So for you, it might be pending, but for let's say the customer, we can say that it's payment pending. Okay. And let's say it's complete for us, and here it's like, let's say closed for the customer, right? Processing for them, and we can say progress, in progress for the customer. So we can have like key value pairing as well. So we use status, which is this one, pointing to name, gives us value of this, and we can also use similar and use value, save, and then run it once more. And you can see that we have the status complete, but the value is closed. So we can have access to that as well. So this is also something that is available. Okay. Next up, we can also add certain functions for some checks as well. So for example, let's say for each of these statuses, you want to associate with them with different colors. So you can do something like this, wherein I defined a public function called color, wherein it will take the this parameter as the this property inside the match statement. We already looked into how match statement works, and we see that okay, if it is pending, we say the color is red. If it is processing, the color is yellow. If it is complete, the color is green, right? So we can also access functions as well. So I can do something like this and do get so not get color, just color. So I can do status color and save. So if I run it one more time, you will see that we have complete, which is the status. Then this is the public status, which is closed, which is the value of the enum. And then we have a function which processes a little bit of the value which is associated with it and tries to figure out what is the equivalent color that needs to be thrown out. For us, it is complete, so it is green. So we can do this as well. And finally, we can also do status checks as well. So something like this is also possible. So I can do a vardam. So here, as you can see, we have order status. We are not comparing it with name or values. We are directly comparing it with the enum complete. So if this matches, it will give us a true. So it's saying remove that and run it. So here you will see that the class status not found. Oh, sorry, it should be order status. Sorry. There we go. Save it. We have true. I think we can do triple check as well. Yep. There we go. So now if I do once more, it is true. But let's say if I do pending or processing instead, I can get a false here. So as you can see, whenever we assign a status, we can directly access the property, and then using the property name or the enum name, you can also make comparisons as well to understand if like the order is in which status or not. Great. So this is how enums work in PHP 8.1. Next, improvements to array spreading. So what is array spreading and how does it work? So let's try to see how it used to work in PHP 7. And now how does it work in PHP 8? So we'll start again with our humble PHP start tag, right? We'll put in two properties, two variables with array A, array values A, B, and CD. Okay. And now we can use something like this, merged. So we are using array spreading, putting A and B, and then we can do the merge. So save that, run it. You will see we have A, B, C, D all merged together into a single array merge. Okay, but this was only possible in PHP 7 if we had numeric keys. But if you have like associative keys, it wasn't possible. So if I do something like this, now it is still possible. So now if I run once more, you will see that A, B, C, D is all merged together, and in the same way it has been put ahead. So I can change B to A and A to B and change the sequence in which they are merged. And as you can see, CD is merged first and then AB is merged. So here you can see how the merge is a little bit different. So it is pretty much equivalent, or like pretty much what it is exactly equivalent to array merge. Okay. So if you have like same values associated with it, so if you have the same key, what array merge does, it will do the same thing. So if I have B here as well and array key B here as well, so first it will merge BB, but then it will overwrite it with this key, which is again B, and the value DD. So if I run it, you will see AA, DD, and then CC. Okay. So this is how the new improved way of array spreading works. So next we have first class callables. So what are first class callables? So let's look into another example really quickly. So oops, let's start with the PHP tag. Sorry. Yep, here we go. Okay. So I can do something like this. Statement. Fine. Oops, sorry. Oh, no, it's okay. So now we have a function called demo, which we are echoing out this is and whatever input we have passed in. So we pass in this is hello, right? And let's end that with a PHP end of line as well. Right. So let's save that. This is hello. We got the output. Okay. Now let's try a little bit fancy. So I can do something like this. We have arguments of input 1, input 2, and input 3, right? And instead of calling them one by one, we can also do something like this, which we are here using array map and then trying to use the callback and then passing in the parameters. So it will loop through each of these values one by one and then run the function one by one with the different parameters. So here, as you can see, this is input 1, this is input 2, and this is input 3. So in PHP 8, instead of doing something like a string value, you can actually write it something like this. So it looks more graceful, wherein like it says that it's a demo function that is called, and then you have the parameters. So here, if I run it, gives you the same output. So basically, instead of using the string input, you can also use something like this. So this is something what is called as first class callables in PHP 8. Okay, what's next? We have intersection types. So what are intersection types? So let's try to understand that with an example. So we already looked into what are union types. So now let's try to understand what is an intersection type. So for that, let's try to see if we can have a class. So here we will put in PHP, then the class, right? So we have a class called products. Okay. So now we can also have constructors in it. So here in the product, I'm trying to take in the product ID and let's say the product, not the product key, but the product URL key. Okay. So and this is the constructor right here. Okay. And we have a function. So let's say that I want to get the array product ID and I want to also use an URL key. Okay, or and get access to the URL key. So for that, to make it as a contract, we actually can use interfaces. So inside an interface, I can create something like this, wherein I say that interface with unique ID. So instead of unique ID, let's say I say product ID. Okay. I save that. Okay. Cool. And we say get unique ID, or instead of unique ID, let's say we get product ID. Okay. So now I can do implements and then add this interface right here, which is this one. And it will again start saying that, okay, you need to have that implemented. So I'll add the stub here. And inside that, we'll just return whatever value we have associated with the ID. Okay. So we have one interface implemented. Great. So now what we can do, we can initialize it. So let's try to do that. So before we do that, let's create a function called get product info. Okay. And inside that, we try to access the product ID. And we, let's say, take it as a parameter. Okay. And we typecast it with the interface so that we know that this function will always be available, which is get product ID. Okay, which is this interface. So we are typecasting it with an interface. So whichever function which has this interface can be passed into this function. So now if I do an obj equal to new product, the first parameter can be, let's say, 1, and the second parameter can be, let's say, sample. Okay. And here we call it and then pass in the object. Cool. And try to run it. So you will see that we have 1 right here. So let me just add an end of line here, maybe here. Cool. So we have 1, okay, associated with it. So just a recap of what we did. We declared a class with constructor parameters ID and URL key. Okay. Then we implemented, we declared an interface with product ID and then had a public method put it, which returns a string. Oh, sorry, this should be a string. This should be an integer. Here also it should be an integer. Just doing some checky checks. Go. Okay, cool. So now, once we implemented this interface right here, we were forced to declare this public function here and then return this whatever value we wanted to. So which is the property ID, which we are returning. And then we also had a function which takes the object, whichever object it is. So it doesn't have to be this class. It can be any class which implements a with product ID interface. Okay.
Hey,
So
Atish, sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt. We only have around 5 more minutes left.
Yeah, I just have one more check
Yeah.
and then it's over.
Thank you. And to the rest of the peeps, please stick around. We'll be doing the contest quiz as soon as Atish is finished. Thank you.
Okay, great. So now we have this ready. Okay. So anytime we have an object which is has implementation or implements a with product ID, this function will accept it. Great. Now let's try to add one more interface to it. So let's say I add one more interface called with ID, with key interface. So here we are trying to get access to the product key. I can do a comma and then write, let's say, with URL key. Again, it throws me an error. I can do a stop check. And here I can do a return of the key, whatever has been associated with it. Right? And then save with it. Okay. Now, instead of URL key, it's URL key. Sorry. Okay. So now we have another function. Now I can do this and do, let's say, get URL key. Run the function once more. So you have product ID as one, and then URL key as sample. Okay. So this is working. This is working perfectly fine. Now it might be that at certain point we want an assurance that both these functions should exist. Okay. So we have a check for with product ID interface, but we don't have a check for with URL key. Okay. So how can we do that? So now we have the ability to do it using something like this. So now if I put something like this and save, run it once more, it works. So at this point, what we are telling PHP is that it should have implementation of both product ID and with URL key. So at any point, if one of these implementation is missing, so let's say this is missing, and I try to save it and try to run it, it will throw an fatal error saying that the object type must be of type with ID with URL key as well. So this is basically a way. So instead, previously we found out in union type, we have an OR check, like something like this. And here we have an AND check, which is for our intersection types. So we have an AND check now as well. So we have OR checks like this or this or this, which is union types. And then now we also have AND checks in which like both the classes should be present, or it should be a part of both the objects, and then only it's allowed to be passed. So I hope this example got you through of how the intersection type works. And finally, the last one, the never type. So this is a recent addition to PHP8. This is how it looks. So basically, there are situations wherein at a point in your framework or your application, you don't want the code to proceed anywhere forward, right? So for example, a good example would be like we have a header, we have a location, and then inside the location header, we have a redirect. So after this, no code execution will happen. So this function can have something called a never return type, which means that this function, once it gets executed, the code will end in this function itself. There would be no exceptions, nothing. So basically the code will end here and the thread will close. So this is the never type. And that's about it. Some resources that I have used to create this presentation. These are the two resources, have really good, what you can say, video tutorials around various features of PHP8. I tried to cover only the ones that I could cover within the hour, but there are a few that I was not able to cover as well. Thank you. And any questions?
Thank you, Atish. Thanks a lot. So, any questions from anyone? Okay, Atish, actually, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
So, in one of the beginning, in beginning, we discussed about nullsafe operator, wherein you demonstrated how if an object in the nested tree doesn't exist, if a key doesn't exist, then it will safely return nothing.
Yeah.
So can you please go back to the slide and share your screen?
Yeah, sure.
That
One
piece of
second.
code.
Yeah. One second.
I guess it was dollar response arrow product arrow
I
category.
have the code snippet with me.
Yeah.
Let me just reshare my screen. Paste it one more time. Yeah, looks something like this, right?
Yeah. So if you remove the product object
Mhm.
from the JSON,
Oh,
just
okay.
remove the product
Completely, right?
completely or whatever, yeah. Or make it
Okay.
null or whatever. Make it null.
Mhm. Okay.
So now the statement on line number 12,
Mhm.
product arrow category names.
Mhm.
Does this return a null value or it returns an empty string? That's my question.
This returns null. So if I do a var dump,
What is the exact value for that return?
so if I do something like this, you will see null.
It will return null value.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else has any questions? Now is the time. We'll just wait for 30 more seconds, Atish, and then we'll begin the quiz contest for the
Okay.
PHP
Great.
Storm license giveaway.
Yay.
So everyone excited about the contest? Please say something in the comments. Okay, last month we did a wheel of fortune to pick a name for the PHP license, PHP Storm license winner. This time we are trying something new, and we'll be running a quiz. And we are using an app developed by one of our community members, Usama Rehan. He is from Chennai and he runs Chennai's Laravel Meetup group. And they have developed this platform called as Get Evaluate, where you can run quizzes, online quizzes. So we are thanks to Rehan for letting us run our quiz on his platform. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing you all a link, and you all have to join the link and take the quiz. The quiz will have questions on PHP 8 and 8.1. So if you have listened to the talk carefully, you should be able to answer most of the questions. But let's see. And there are 5 questions only. We need to make it very quick. There are only 5 questions, multiple choice. Each question has 4 options. You need to pick up one correct option from the 4 options, and you'll get 3 minutes for this. Whoever answers most number of questions correct first will be the winner. So if let's say there are 2 people who have answered 5 questions correctly, then whoever has answered first in least amount of time, he or she will be the winner. So let's start now. Ready, everyone? Just give a thumbs up in the comment section if you're ready. Then I will post the link to the quiz. And you can take this quiz from your mobile phones as well. Just click the link and open the mobile browser. Okay. I am posting the link now. Best of luck to everyone. And please stick around after taking the quiz. We'll be announcing the winner as well. Here you go, everyone. Best of luck. Please let me know in comments if you're facing any issues while taking the quiz. Okay, so I see people are saying that they are not able to see the link. Let me try something else then. I'm just breaking it up. Please, I'm putting some spaces in the link. Can you all see the link now in comments? Just remove the spaces from between the domain name and path and try this. Make sure to remove the spaces. I have posted the link again with some spaces. Make sure you remove the spaces in between from between the words before pasting it and trying it. Hopefully it should work this time. Please let me know if it doesn't work. So the link is getevaluate.app/session/16562831 without any spaces anywhere. Then if you still can't see the link, just a moment. Can you? I just posted a comment. Can you please see if you can see my comment? Okay, I'll just put the link once again. It will come, the comment will come in a few seconds. Okay, I posted the link once again, and the link is without any HTTP in front of it. So you'll have to put HTTP. That is because YouTube is blocking it. So the link is get evaluate GETEvaluate/session/16562831. Okay, the link is now working for a few people. For others, please confirm if the link is now working.
I again posted the link in double quotes. Can you
I'll
see it
try
in the
that as
comments?
well. I
I
just
directly
posted it
posted it
in.
from YouTube. Uh, I can see my comment. I'm not sure if people can see the comment as well.
Okay, I posted it again. Atish, can you see the link in
Yeah,
the
yeah, I can
comments?
see the link now.
And can you open it?
1 second. Yep, I can open it.
Okay. Then it should most probably work for everyone else as well.
Yep.
Okay, I see some results coming in now. People have started taking the quiz. Okay, the quiz is running now. People are attending the questions. Let's see who makes it. And I'm going to make the scorecard live as well, so that you all can see what's going on and who is winning. Just a moment. Okay. I have posted a link to the scoreboard as well. Please see if you all can see the scores. Okay. It's still going on. 1 or 2 people left to answer. People are picking up now. we had Gotham on number 1 position till now, but Divya is giving him a good run. Let's see. Just 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll have the final results. Okay. Okay, I think we are done. We have a winner. Congratulations, Gautam. You're the winner. So, Gautam, you need to get in touch with us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is Laravel Nagpur, LARAVELNAGPUR, Laravel Nagpur, or just email us at laravelnagpur@gmail.com and we will send you your license. Can you please give a thumbs up in the comments so that we know you have heard what I just said?
I think Gautam posted thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for tonight. Once again, thank you, Atish, for your time and letting us know all the new and exciting features of PHP8. And thank you, everyone who attended the meetup. Uh, I keep repeating this, the Laravel Nagpur community is nothing without you all wonderful peeps. And congratulations to Gautam Roy, who won the PHP Storm license. And I hope to see you all next month. And one more minor detail, we may be conducting an offline meetup next month. It depends on multiple factors. I will announce the meetup in April. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone, and thank you for all for listening. Bye bye.